We are at 15 minutes after 8 o'clock here on Island Morning. Sharon McNeil is being remembered as a crusader in the fight to improve the way breast cancer is detected and treated here on PEI. She was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer when she was 61, and she died Christmas Day at the age of 69. The wife, mother, and grandmother spent a lot of the last 8 years of her life trying to make sure no other island women faced what she did. In a few minutes, we'll hear from one of the people paying tribute to Sharon McNeil and what she's accomplished. But first, here's part of an interview that Island Morning did with Sharon from 2017.
To me, the most horrific risk is that the screening tools that we have now, and we only have the mammogram as a screening tool. Oh, other than self-exam and clinical exam and mammogram, those are screening tools. Can we find an abnormality in the breast? Mammograms are effective in about 48 to 64% of detecting breast cancer in an extremely dense breast. If it's a fatty breast, they're about 97% effective. So to me, there's a population of women with extremely dense breasts that are underserved by a mammogram. In PEI, what we do usually, if we see women with very dense breasts, and I'm grateful for this, we will call women back on a more regular basis, not once every 2 years, but once every year or even once every 6 months, because there is concern about missing an early stage tumor. So we do that, and not all provinces do that, so we're lucky that PEI does that. Still, though, I think that community is underserved.
That was Sharon McNeil speaking to us on Island Morning in 2017. To remember Sharon, I spoke with Jenny Dale. She's the executive director and co-founder of Dense Breast Canada. Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning, Laura.
So I know it was a number of years ago when I first talked to Sharon McNeil about her concerns. When did you first meet her?
I was first introduced to Sharon in 2017, shortly after we began Dense Breast Canada, and she was advocating for a number of different issues to improve breast cancer screening in Canada, and she was running a support group for women with metastatic breast cancer in Atlantic Canada, and she was finding that a lot of women in that group had dense breasts, and she was extremely concerned because she felt that had they been informed of their breast density, many of these women would not have been metastatic. And so she was very interested in the subject, and we began advocating together at that time.
What had happened personally to her that led her to this?
Okay, well, Sharon's story was extremely unfortunate. Due to personal reasons, including what she admits to be embarrassment, she did not have a mammogram, ever. Her first mammogram was after she found a lump. And she did not want other women to go through what she went through. In fact, I found a comment that Sharon made on a Facebook post exactly 2 years ago today. I was wondering if I could read it to you because it really tells you about her experience and what she wanted for the women of Canada. Would that be okay if I shared that with you?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. She writes, I could have saved my life had I chosen to have a mammogram. I chose not to. And having found a lump at age 61, I then went for my first mammogram. It was too late. I was already stage 4 by then and was told that probably the cancer had been growing for about 3 to 5 years. Because my breasts are not dense, I'm a category A regular mammogram would probably have caught the cancer early. I still believe, I know, I could have saved my life. For those choosing not to have a mammogram, please reconsider. Please don't be me.
What a sad thing, right?
Absolutely. And this really became, her life's mission to get the word out to women about the importance of having mammograms, about the importance of knowing your breast density, about the importance of advocating for yourself, because she really was able to extend her own life by her own self-advocacy.
Yeah. And I always assumed that she herself had dense breasts, but you say she didn't. So how did she make that connection?
Well, she was fighting for other women. she was doing this for others. She heard it from her support group. She knew the importance of it. She had, in our conversation, she came to understand the implications that women with dense breasts are at risk of having a later stage diagnosis because their cancer can be masked on their mammogram because dense tissue shows up as white and breast cancer shows up as white. So there is this camouflage effect. And women were not being told this. So it was a sense of injustice. She was very intent on making sure that women were informed of this. And it's not just women without breast cancer, but women with breast cancer, because having dense breasts impacts women with breast cancer as well, because you are more, have a higher chance of having breast cancer return, having breast cancer in the other breast. So she wanted all women to know this information, even though it didn't impact her personally. None of her advocacy was going to be of benefit to her. She was doing this for the women of PEI, for the women of Canada, and that's because she was a beautiful, compassionate woman who cared so much for other people.
And at that point, I know she had reached out to Health PEI and to some of the breast cancer specialists and sort of started lobbying and saying, we need to have you share that information with women. But that wasn't happening in PEI. Now it is. Do you know how she made that difference?
Yes, it's a little bit of a process, but, when she became interested in this issue of density, she began lobbying, and we were lobbying as well. We had joined forces, and it made an impact. We got to the point where the Liberal government had agreed to do a review, and then with further lobbying, they spoke up in the House and made a commitment, except the commitment was only to inform women in the highest category of breast density. And Sharon was not going to have that. That is not what we wanted. We needed all women to be informed of their breast density, not just women in the highest category or at risk. It's women in the two highest categories that are at increased risk of breast cancer and increased risk of this camouflage effect. So she continued to lobby. She ramped up. She got Janet Gallant, another wonderful woman in PEI who unfortunately we have lost. They joined forces, and they went and they spoke to as many MLAs as they could, and they got a meeting with the health minister at the time, Robert Mitchell, in person. Not only did she convince Mr. Mitchell of the importance of informing all women of their breast density, but she also got him to commit to giving annual mammograms to women in both category C and D, the two highest categories. It was an amazing meeting, and I'll never forget that day, because what struck me the most about that day was how sick Sharon was. She had a terrible time. She didn't live close to Charlottetown. She had a difficult time getting home. She was so ill, and yet it was so important to her. This advocacy was so important to her. It speaks to who she was. And following that meeting, there was a commitment. Unfortunately, there was an election called, but because of the groundwork that Sharon and Janet had done, and then Kathy Caulfield also joined, all four parties made an election commitment to implement this if elected. And then when the Conservatives were elected, they quickly did implement it. They unfortunately didn't implement the entire commitment, and Sharon was continuing to advocate because they had also committed to giving ultrasound to women with dense breasts, and that didn't happen. And Sharon was continuing to advocate because it's not enough to just tell women that they have dense breasts. You have to do something about it. You have to give them the extra screening. And so she was continuing to advocate for that.
When you heard that she died Christmas Day, what were your thoughts?
It hurt. It hurt, so much. We had known it was coming, unfortunately. I mean, it is such a loss. It is just, that's how I felt, just a sense of loss. And I just kept hearing her voice in my head, the most beautiful voice, just that energy in it, and that it was like a song. Her voice was like a music to me. And I just felt, we have all lost so much. But we really have to keep going. We have to continue Sharon's legacy. there is so much still to be done, and she was fighting really till the end, and we have to continue fighting that. I just felt more inspired. We have to continue her work.
Well, I'm thankful that you joined us and shared some of your memories of Sharon today with us.
Thank you so much for this honor. Truly, truly. Thank you.
That's Jenny Dale. She's the executive director and co-founder of Dense Breast Canada, sharing her memories of Sharon McNeil. And Sharon died on Christmas Day, and condolences to her family. No visitation or funeral service by request.